All right, so maybe you're thinking about picking up Falls to Pieces, but I'm not really sure if it's worth the read. You know how it is.
Yeah, totally. It can be tough to decide.
Especially with so many books out there.
Yeah.
Limited time, right? So to help you figure that out, I've got an expert here who has actually read the book cover to cover and has some thoughts. So
Yeah, happy to be here.
awesome. Glad to have you. So let's just get straight to it. Falls to Pieces, hit or miss?
Well, I'd say it's a bit of a mixed bag, to be honest. The Goodreads reviews are kind of all over the place. It's sitting at like a 3.51, which isn't bad, but the comments are really divided, you know?
Oh, really?
Some people are saying it's a huge page turner, they couldn't put it down.
Okay.
Others found it a little bit convoluted, the plot.
Interesting. So not a universal thumbs up right away, but hey, maybe that's a good thing, right? Sometimes those are the books that people just can't stop talking about.
Right, exactly.
So for who would this book be a good fit? Who should be adding this to their to-be-read pile?
I think if you're a fan of psychological thrillers, you know those books that really get inside the character's head?
Yep.
This one might be for you, especially if you like unreliable narrators. You know those characters where you're never quite sure if you can trust what they're saying?
Oh yeah, love those.
And also, if you're drawn to stories with a strong sense of place, you know, a setting that really comes alive,
Right.
the Hawaiian backdrop in this book is definitely a major part of the appeal.
So it's not just a random setting. It's like,
No, it's integral to the story.
got it. Okay, so picture this.
Yeah.
You're on a beautiful beach in Hawaii, waves crashing in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And you're reading this story about a woman and her daughter who are trying to escape a past that just keeps coming back to haunt them.
Yep, that's the basic premise.
Sounds pretty intriguing, right?
It is definitely a grabber.
Yeah.
The main character is Kari, and she's fled to Hawaii with her daughter Zoe to try to start a new life.
Okay.
But then her fiancé goes missing. And as the police start investigating, it becomes clear that Kari isn't being entirely truthful about her past.
Oh, so there's some secrets.
Lots of secrets.
I love it. So we've got the unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
We've got the beautiful setting. We've got some mystery.
Yeah.
What about the writing itself?
Yeah.
Does the author actually make you feel like you're in Hawaii?
Oh, absolutely. The descriptions are so vivid and sensory, you can practically smell the plumeria and feel the sand between your toes.
Wow, that's great.
There's this one scene, for example, where Kari is walking along the beach at sunset.
Okay.
And the way he describes the colors of the sky, like the oranges and pinks and purples, just stunning.
Beautiful.
And then the sound of the waves lapping against the shore. It's like you're right there with her.
That's what I like to hear. I'm all about books that can transport me. But I have to ask, sometimes those really detailed descriptions can slow down the plot. Did you find that happening here at all?
It depends what kind of reader you are, I think. Some people might find the first half a little bit slow because the author spends a lot of time setting up Kaidi's backstory and the relationship with her daughter Zoe.
Right. Got to lay that groundwork.
Exactly. You need to understand where she's coming from to really get her character. But then
So when does the mystery really kick in? When do things start to get exciting?
things definitely pick up in the second half.
Okay, good.
That's when the twists start coming. And believe me, there are a few that will have you gasping out loud.
Oh, I love a good twist.
For example, and I won't give too much away, but there's this revelation about Kari's former mother-in-law's death
Okay.
that totally changes how you view everything that came before.
Wow. Okay, so we've got multiple storylines, a missing fiancé, a mysterious past, and now a suspicious death. Was it ever too much? Did you ever feel lost or like the plot was getting too convoluted?
I can see how some readers might feel that way. The author does jump around a bit between the present-day investigation, flashbacks to Kari's past, and even chapters from Zoe's point of view. It's ambitious, for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like the author is trying to do something a little bit different with this thriller. It's not just a straightforward mystery.
Right. It's more layered than that. It's about exploring Kati's psychology and how her past is impacting her present.
And that brings us back to Kati herself, the unreliable narrator. Can you talk a bit more about her character? What makes her so unreliable?
Well, she's clearly been through a lot. She had an abusive mother and then an abusive husband. So she's carrying a lot of baggage.
Right.
But her actions aren't always easy to understand. She makes impulsive decisions, she withholds information, and sometimes she just acts in ways that seem completely contradictory.
Oh, so she's keeping us guessing.
Absolutely. She's a puzzle that you're constantly trying to solve.
So we're not just trying to figure out what happened to her fiancé, we're also trying to figure out Kati herself.
Exactly. And that's what makes the book so engaging. You're constantly questioning her motives, her actions, her version of events.
I like it. It sounds like the author has created a really complex and fascinating character.
He definitely has. And speaking of things that are complex and fascinating, let's talk about the ending.
Okay, I'm ready for it.
Well, let's just say it's divisive. Some readers found it shocking and satisfying,
Okay.
while others felt a little let down by it.
Oh, interesting. So it's one of those endings that people will be talking about.
Definitely. It's going to spark some debates for sure.
I love that.
Yeah.
So before we get into whether or not you recommend the book, I'm curious, are there any other authors or books that Falls to Pieces reminds you of?
That's a good question. The unreliable narrator and the exploration of past trauma definitely gave me some Lisa Gardner vibes,
Okay, yeah.
especially books like Before She Disappeared or The Neighbor.
Interesting.
And then the atmospheric setting with that sense of danger lurking beneath the surface of paradise reminded me a bit of Harlan Coben's work.
Yeah, I can see those comparisons. Both
Yes.
of those authors are really good at creating suspense.
Right.
But before we move on, I have to ask, you mentioned Cotty being an unreliable narrator. Can you give me a specific example without giving away too much about the plot?
Sure. So early on in the book, Cotty insists that she barely knew her fiance's mother, who died under mysterious circumstances a few years ago.
Yeah.
But later we find out that she actually spent quite a bit of time with her, and their relationship was far more complex than Cotty initially let on.
Oh, so she's definitely hiding something.
Oh, yeah.
And that makes you question everything else she says.
Right. Exactly.
I'm starting to see why this book is getting such mixed reviews.
Yeah.
It's definitely not your typical thriller. It sounds like it's trying to do something a little bit different.
It is, and that's what makes it so interesting. But to really answer the question of whether or not it's worth reading,
Right.
we need to dig a little deeper into its strengths and weaknesses.
Right, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, so strengths and weaknesses. Where should we start?
Hit me with the good stuff first. What did you really enjoy about this book?
Well, one of the things that really stood out to me was the atmosphere. I mean, the way Corleone describes Hawaii, it's like you're right there. You can practically feel the heat and humidity, smell the flowers, hear the waves crashing.
Yeah, you were talking about that earlier. I'm getting a real sense of place from what you're saying.
Oh, yeah, he totally nails it. And that sense of place really adds to the suspense because you have this beautiful tropical paradise, but underneath it all, there's this darkness, this sense of danger lurking.
Ooh, I like that. So it's not all sunshine and rainbows?
Definitely not. Okay, so that's the setting, but what about the mystery itself? Does the book deliver on that front?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Is it a good mystery?
I'd say it is, but with a caveat, it's not your typical whodunit. You know, it's not just about solving a crime. It's more about unraveling Kati's psychological state and understanding how her past is impacting her present.
So it's more character-driven than plot-driven.
Exactly. It's about the journey, not just the destination. And that journey is centered around Cuddy, who we've already established is a bit of an enigma.
Right, the unreliable narrator. So the author really digs deep into her character.
Oh, yeah. He goes all in. And one of the things that impressed me was the way he portrays the lasting effects of trauma. I mean, Cuddy's been through so much with her abusive mother and husband, and it's clear that those experiences have left deep scars.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, trauma can really shape a person. It can affect how you see the world, how you interact with people, how you make decisions.
Absolutely. And in Khaleesi's case, it definitely contributes to her unreliability as a narrator. It's not just that she's intentionally lying or withholding information, it's that she herself might not fully grasp how much her past is influencing her perception of reality.
Okay, so it's like she's unreliable even to herself.
Exactly. And that adds a whole other layer of complexity to the story because you're constantly trying to figure out what's real and what's not just for Cotty, but for the reader as well.
It sounds like this book really gets under your skin.
It does. You can't help but get caught up in Cuddy's world and her struggles.
But sometimes when a book is so focused on the psychological aspects, it can lose some of its momentum.
Mm.
Did you ever find yourself wanting more action or a faster pace?
To be honest, yeah, there were times when I wish things would move a little quicker, especially in the beginning. Like we said before, the first half is very much about setting the stage, introducing the characters, and delving into Cotty's backstory.
So it's a bit of a slow burn.
It is, but I think it's worth it. The payoff comes later when the tension really starts to build and the twists start to unravel.
Okay, so you're saying it does eventually get to the edge of your seat kind of thriller moments.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The second half is much more action-packed. The stakes get higher and the danger becomes more real. You're really rooting for Cotty to figure things out and to find some kind of resolution.
I can't wait to see how it all plays out. But what about those readers who prefer their thrillers to be more straightforward, more plot-driven? Would you still recommend Falls to Pieces to them?
That's a tough one. I think if you're someone who prioritizes a really tight plot, a fast pace and clear-cut answers, you might find this book a little frustrating.
Okay, I can see that.
The multiple storylines and shifts in perspective can be a bit disorienting at times, and the ending, while thought-provoking, might leave some readers wanting more closure.
Right. It's not one of those books that ties everything up neatly with a bow.
No, it definitely leaves some things open to interpretation.
Yeah.
But I actually think that's one of the book's strengths. It makes
Yeah.
you think. It makes you question. It makes you want to talk about it with other people.
Yeah, I agree. There's something to be said for a book that stays with you long after you've finished reading it.
Exactly. And that's where the comparisons to Lisa Gardner and Harlan Coben come in. Like Corleone, they're masters at creating characters with hidden depths and exploring the dark side of seemingly perfect settings.
So if you like those authors, you might enjoy False to Pieces.
Yeah, there's a good chance you'll find something to appreciate here, too. But
There's always a but.
But, and this is a big but, Falls to Pieces is not for everyone. It's a book that demands your attention. It demands your patience. And it demands your willingness to embrace ambiguity.
Okay, so you really need to be in the right mood for this one.
Yeah, for sure. If you're looking for a light escapist read, this is probably not the best choice. But if you're willing to go deep to really explore the complexities of human nature and the lasting impact of trauma, then this book offers a really compelling and ultimately unforgettable reading experience.
Well said. Okay, so we've talked about the atmosphere, the mystery, the characters, the ending.
Hmm.
What's your overall verdict? Should our listeners take the plunge and read False to Pieces?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And honestly, it all comes down to you, the listener, and what you're hoping to get out of this book.
Okay, but if you had to give a yes or no answer, what would it be?
All right, I'll give you my verdict, but I do want to encourage you to weigh the pros and cons we've discussed and make the decision that feels right for you. All right, so here's the deal. If you're the kind of reader who loves to really dive deep into a character's psychology, if you appreciate a vivid and atmospheric setting and you're not afraid of a book that takes its time to unfold, then I'd say go for it. Give Falls to Pieces a shot.
Okay, so you're leaning towards a yes.
I am. But on the other hand, if you're looking for a super fast-paced thriller with lots of action and a clear-cut resolution, this one might leave you feeling a bit unsatisfied.
That's fair. It sounds like this book is definitely more about the journey than the destination. It's about exploring those gray areas, those unanswered questions.
Exactly. And it really makes you think, one of the things that stayed with me after finishing the book was that whole idea of escape. Can we ever truly escape our past?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Mhm.
Especially in today's world where it feels like we're constantly connected.
Right. Even if you physically go somewhere new, even if you change your name, your past is still a part of you. It shapes who you are.
And the book touches on that with Cody's daughter, Zoe, right?
Correct.
She's growing up in this world where social media is everything, and she's kind of struggling with it.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what would it really take to disappear these days? What would we have to give up to truly start over?
That's a really interesting question. And it's something that I think a lot of people can relate to on some level, whether it's a past relationship, a job, a family situation. We all have those things that we might want to escape from.
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes Falls to Pieces so powerful. It's not just a thriller, it's a reflection on human nature, on the things that haunt us, the choices we make, and the consequences we face.
Well said. I think you've given our listeners a lot to think about. So big thanks for joining us today and sharing your insights on Falls to Pieces. It's been a fascinating conversation.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And to all our listeners out there, we want to hear from you. Did Fall to Pieces captivate you, or did it leave you feeling a bit lost? Did you love the ending, or did you want more?
Head over to our website or social media and share your thoughts. Because here at The Deep Dive, we're all about exploring those big questions, those complex characters, and those stories that stay with us long after we've turned the final page. So keep reading, keep thinking, and keep the conversation going. Happy reading, everyone.